What's up, Pirate fans? There's a lot to talk about today as Seton Hall teams across the board enter Big East play. Both men's and women's soccer got off to solid starts but have had some recent struggles. We'll discuss what they need to do to ensure a successful conference season. On the volleyball side, the Pirates fell in their Big East opener against Villanova in 4 sets. With the new young team, the Hall will look to regroup and get back to their winning ways. All that and more is next. This is Hall Talk. We welcome you back. Let's introduce you to our panel this evening. We got Bob Towey here and Erin Kelly. How are you guys doing today?
I am doing excellent, Keith. How are you?
Just as well. Good to hear.
Sensation.
What about you, Erin?
Good to be here.
Awesome. And so let's get right into things. Women's soccer got off to a solid start, 2-1-2. Since then, has only been able to find one win, a couple ties, and a few losses. You know, is this team struggling in a rough patch, or are they kind of falling back to earth? Because we saw them get off to a better start than we're used to.
I'll be honest, heading into this season, my hopes weren't exactly the highest for the women's soccer program. I mean, last season, no wins. Season before, atrocious. So they've got 2 more wins than they ever had before, which is great, and it's a big step up. But, I mean, at the same time, I think the start that they had gave people a little bit of a misconception about what the team could do. Obviously, they didn't return a whole lot of offense this season, so naturally the scoring's just not going to be there when you need it to, but they're lucky they're getting draws. They're lucky they've won a couple to this point, and right now the team's playing right up to my expectations, I'd say.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Bob. The team is doing what they need to do in order to get these wins. I mean, you brought in 8 new freshmen this year. Coach Rick Stanton is still here coaching this team. I expected them not to have the best season, but to see them get 2 wins at least heading into conference play, I think is a bright side for this team. We'll see where they go in the conference.
And a big problem for them have really been on the scoring end, on the offensive end. Up until their most recent game with a 2-2 tie, every game they've only given up 1 goal. But that's also led to a lot of their ties, including their last 3, UMass Lowell, Central Connecticut State, LIU Brooklyn Wednesday night. Are these ties, should they be looked at as good for the Pirates? I mean, you're not losing these games, you're scoring, you're putting points on the board, but at the same time, you want to come out on the winning side.
I think if you're not winning, it's bad, but if you're not losing, it's better than the alternative, right? So
I guess so.
If you're drawing opposition, even if you're giving up goals late, which they have done, like we saw against Central Connecticut, right? It's not ideal because the defense needs to be there through the entire game. But still, the fact that they're able to salvage these ties and keep it close, that's what you want to see.
Now, see, to me, a tie is actually a good thing here because it still gets you a point. You know, a loss gets you 0 points, but that tie is still getting that 1 point, getting you closer to that conference tournament. I don't think the team's going to get there, but in order to make those right steps, getting those ties, getting that 1 point is crucial for this team at this point.
And it's definitely showing improvement. You have a young team, as you said, bringing in 8 new players. You want to see this team be able to grow together, and I think you're seeing that kind of, playing in tough games, going down to the wire, a lot of overtime games. But now you head into Big East play. There's a lot more coming to them. You're kind of playing. Every game matters a little bit more as you talk about conference tournament play. You want to get into that tournament, and even though women's soccer was not projected to be in that, they were voted last in the preseason poll, even though they've showed some promise early. What are your guys' thoughts going into Big East play?
I think Providence has to be the team to beat. I mean, they are 5-0 at home, 1-1-1 on the road. They have been truly unstoppable. I mean, I didn't see it coming. And then Villanova, also weirdly enough, Villanova has been pretty decent this year, 3-2 at home or 3-2 away, 3-0 at home. So if you're traveling to Villanova, there's a very good chance they're going to take that game. So they really stepped their thing up from last season, and I think it shows on the field.
See, a great win for this team would be to win against Georgetown at Georgetown. They're currently ranked 10th in the nation in women's soccer. So to get that win down there would be big for this team. I don't think it's going to happen realistically. I think we have the best shot at beating Marquette and St. John's. St. John's senior night, Marquette is currently 2-6, so those are great possible wins for the Pirates.
Absolutely, and you said before you didn't really have high expectations for them going in, but now you have a little bit of a sample size, now going into Big East play. Before we wrap things up here, any early predictions record-wise?
Record-wise, I still think they finished towards the bottom of the conference. With that being said, I think recent history has shown we can expect more draws from them. We can expect them to be getting points the hard way, and we can expect them to compete. It's just defensively, it hasn't all been there towards the end.
I'm expecting them to go 2-5-2 this season. Really depends on need more people to score than Siobhan, McGovern, and Cassie Harrigan. Need more people to step up, but they don't get that 2-5-2 across the board.
And on the men's side of things, as we move over there, the men's soccer team lost their Big East opener 1-0 at St. John's. 12 shots, 5 on goal. They had one less corner kick, one less foul. So, on the stat sheet, nothing really sticks out. This team kind of is able to hang with a lot of teams that they've played, both out of conference and now as they enter Big East play, but they've still found themselves on the losing end. So what is it really that is holding this team back? Is it, defensively, offensively? Is there something that this team is just not bringing to the table?
For me, when I looked at the stats and kind of broke it down, the one thing that stood out to me was the shots to goal differential, right? Seton Hall has scored 7 goals on 96 shots. Their opposition has scored 7 goals on 77 shots. It just takes them fundamentally fewer chances to score their opposition. And when Seton Hall needs more chances than their opposition to score, it's not good. It's going to cost them wins.
There's that fact too, but there's also the fact that, we have a new coach this season, and you brought in 20 new players. 18 or almost 8 were transfers in. You have a bunch of new freshmen. So I think that aspect of learning how this team can mesh together, we pretty much have a whole new team this year. So I think it's that struggle here is why you're not really seeing a lot of stats coming out.
And yeah, having a new coach, obviously this team has kind of brought a different mindset, which I feel has really helped them. I think they're coming out with a new attitude. They're playing harder, I would say, just by being at the games and seeing kind of what the atmosphere is there. And they're also responding to losses. They lose the game to St. John's, and then they come back with a tie to Sacred Heart. So, when you see a team bounce back like that, do you think that it's, good getting into conference play or just, a good game for them to play that day?
I think it shows that they can learn and it shows that they can grow from these losses. The other thing I really like is that scoring distribution-wise, they are getting a lot from their young players. You're not seeing veterans hitting the score sheet. You are seeing the freshmen come in, like C.J. Tibbling, Nico Anderson, Carlton McKenzie. Like, these are the guys who make a difference on the offensive end. So I think on attack, it's great that they can trust these freshmen, and it just shows the tremendous energy that they bring, regardless of the record. I mean, it shows tremendous growth potential.
And you've definitely seen those young players make an impact early on, but now they're heading into their first Big East season. When they get into conference play, could be a shell shock, and you may need to see some senior play as well.
There's absolutely that, but also, like Bob said, having other people come in and making those shots, like this game against Sacred Heart, J.P. Mirren coming in and making that final goal. But it's also a step in the right direction for them. Picking up this win going into the game on Saturday. You have 10 points right now. They're 3-2-1. It's a step in the right direction going to conference play and coming back home, where they're going to be playing their second game at home this season. They've been on the road almost all season, only had a tie at home. So it's a good step for them.
And now they'll be playing at home, their Big East home opener against Marquette on Saturday. What do you guys want to see from this team? Maybe a prediction on their first home opener in Big East play.
I think Seton Hall draws them. I think it's going to be 2-2. I think you're going to see the same new players contributing on offense that you've been seeing, but I think ultimately Marquette's just not going to need that many chances to get the ball in the net, and I think it's ultimately going to hold them back.
I think the goalkeeper Noda is going to have a big game here against Marquette. Marquette's 3-4 right now. It's going to be a big game for the Pirates. They're going to have to win it because if you lose your Big East home opener, it could put you in a dive spiral for the rest of the season. So it's an important game for them to pick up and win it.
And that brings us into another team who lost their home opener, or their Big East opener, excuse me, and that is our volleyball team. Lost 2 out of 3 at the Hofstra Invitational. Now 2 straight tournaments, not coming out on the winning end, losing 2 out of 3. This is a young team. This is a new team. But this is a program that's had a good history and a good recent history as well. What does this team have to do with these young players? Are you concerned about them at all?
I'm not that concerned because if you compare this season to last, right now they are 5-9. This point last season they were 6-8. So if we're talking about comparisons and seeing the amount of high-scoring players that the Pirates lost, just who moved on and graduated, the fact that they've been pretty much able to come par with what they were at last season, that's a good sign to me. I think ultimately the season's going to end up very similar to how it was last year, but there's growth potential. Again, there's a lot of young players coming in, and sure, they're going to lose Abby Thielen at the end of all this, and she's just been rock solid for how many years, right? But it's going to be tough. Right now, they're doing all right.
Yeah, Abby Thielen obviously a key part to this team, but some of those young players are going to have to step up once it comes to conference play.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to step up because right now I'm very concerned because Abby Thielen and Caitlin Koska are your main kill getters right now. Abby Phelan has 159, Caitlin Koska has 139, and then after that it drops down to 61 with freshman Claire Forrest. So it's just not good for this team that you're not getting these kills, and then there's just a lot of problems with this team that I see that makes me worried going into conference play.
And you see that, the games that they're able to pull off, some of those young players have their best games, and it shows on the final score. But you mentioned, you see problems. There's some things happening here that just, aren't familiar. They're not really coming up with the key point later on in the match, which you used to always see. But what other problems do you guys see that, this team really needs to improve upon into Big East play?
Scoring distribution. Honestly, Erin touched on it before. Abby Thielen and Caitlin Koska fundamentally burden most of the load for this team in terms of points. And that's not sustainable, honestly. If you want a team to be competitive, your point totals cannot be coming mostly from two players. So if there's somebody that needs to step up, it's who we mentioned before, Claire Forrest. I mean, she's an outside hitter, virtually the same size and wingspan as Abby Thielen. The potential is there for her to be really good, but obviously she's a freshman. They can't throw her in right away. So she needs to slowly transition into having more of a role on the attack, and they need to start delegating more responsibility to her. And I think not only for the purposes of this season, but moving forward, it'll be good for her to have this year as a foundation.
Now, for me, the biggest problem here is that if you total all of our service errors, attacking errors, and receiving errors, that is 398 errors, which almost equates to 16 sets worth of points.
That ain't pretty.
Which isn't great, which when you look at it, like that's 16 more sets that we could have won if our team is not making these errors. And look at someone like Sophia Coffey, who only has around 250 assists. The reason why she's so low is because she can't get assists when you're making these service errors. The biggest problem is that they're hitting into the net. They're not making their serves. That's the problem for this team. That's what they need to fix if they're going to want to win in Big East play.
And there's been a lot of key situations where you've seen that. It's not just happening when, you want to get a point, but when they need a point. And that's what's really hurt them going into, now Big East play. That's when it really counts. So they're going to have to really come together as a team, figure it out. Young players will have to step up, as we talked about here. But that's all the time we have for today. So we thank you guys for viewing our Hall Talk here today. For Erin, Kelly, and Bob Towey, I'm Keith Egan. We'll see you next week.